Hi, I'm Tommy Knepper. I'm CEO and co-founder of Infield Strategies. We are a nationwide grassroots outreach firm. I'm here to talk to you today about developing your pathway to victory. Hopefully you've watched some of my past modules. In the last one, I talked about specifically developing a pathway to victory as part of what you have in place day one. I'm going to go a little more in depth onto that. These are the 6 things you absolutely need to have in your pathway to victory. 1, you need to have your internal staff in place. Again, if you watched my past module, this should have been in place day one, at least your campaign manager or day-to-day person and your fundraiser or treasurer should be in place day one. But you need to have those 2 positions and a plan on how to build out your internal staff. So working backwards from election day, when are you going to add a deputy campaign manager? Are you going to add a comms director? Are you going to add a full-time fundraiser internally or hire a fundraising firm? Are you going to hire internal grassroots outreach personnel, or are you going to hire a firm like mine? But you need to have that kind of plan, the growth plan, working backwards from election day, developed out. That internal staff, including your swag plan, right? So how many lawn signs are you going to buy roughly? How many t-shirts do you think you're going to need? How many palm cards do you think you're going to want? How many pieces of walklet do you think you're going to want? All those things should have a budget line item within your internal staffing plan. And mapped out backwards from election day. That total budget for your internal staffing plan, including the swag, should be no more than 15% of your total budget. So as you're building out your plan to victory, you're also assigning dollar amounts to that plan to victory. And so your internal staffing plan, working backwards from election day to the day that you're starting, should include all of that internal staff. All the swag should amount to no more than 15% of your total budget. Your fundraising, again, going back to my past module, your house list needs to be developed. Your fundraising should have been started already, or at least started on day one. You need to have that mapped out. So by and large, how many large fundraising events do you think you're going to have? How many small fundraising events do you think you're going to have? How much money do you think you're going to raise off of direct email blasting or direct mail fundraising? If you don't know those questions, either talk to someone that does, hire a fundraiser, or get with a local community member who has done some of these campaigns before, a consultant that has done these campaigns before, and they can point you in the right direction. But you need to have a general idea of how many dollars you can raise, and realistically how many dollars you can raise, and kind of how you're going to raise those and in what timeline you think you're going to raise those on. And that needs to be mapped out. All the costs for all those events, the fundraiser themselves, or the firm you hire, the events themselves, if you're renting out locations, etc., should be no more than 10% of your budget. Some people talk about 15, 20% being fundraising costs. That's frankly an old school model. We live in a digital world where everything's so interconnected now via email, text, digital outreach, that your fundraising efforts should be no more than 10% of your total budget. You need to have a data-driven campaign. And again, all of this goes into your original campaign plan that really should be ready around day one, but that's part of your pathway to victory. Data-driven campaign. Now, where you get the data from, how robust your data is going to be budget dependent and size dependent on your campaign. If you're a local campaign, you might not be able to go out and afford a pollster or a data modeler. You might have to rely on past data from a data company. But you need to have some sort of data. You can't go out and campaign on your hunch or your gut. You will lose. You need to have some sort of data that's behind you, whether that's past voter files and voter frequency, looking at 104, 204, 304, 404 voters and, their partisanship is something as simple as that, all the way up to looking at, voter tags from past campaigns, if you have access to those, or consumer data, if you can purchase that, or obviously if you can hire a pollster who can give you a benchmark poll and some follow-up brush fires, or obviously a data modeler who can give you a full data model across your electorate. But you need to have some sort of data that's showing you, hey, these are the voters that I think are going to vote this election cycle. These are the voters that I think I need to win over in order to win this election cycle, and this is how I'm going to talk to them. All of that data comes from a data-driven campaign. And you need to have that overlay across your entire campaign, or you're going to miss something, voters will fall through the cracks, or you're going to waste money talking to the wrong voters. But make sure you know who you need to talk to, how many times you need to talk to them, how many people you need to turn out, and what the final turnout model looks like in order to map your pathway to victory, working backwards from election day all the way through. And that overlays across your entire campaign. All the rest of your outreach is driven by that data. That budget on that, again, is dependent, and so I can't really assign a certain percentage amount to that, but it does need to be included. You need to spend some money on acquiring data to drive your campaign forward. Number 4, you need grassroots outreach plan established and in place. Whether, again, that's going out and hiring some college kids or some local community members to canvass for you, working underneath your campaign manager, working out of the office, running internal staff, or going out and hiring a firm like mine who can help you kind of put those plans in place. But you need to have a plan, working backwards from election day. When do you want to have boots on the ground? How many times do you want to talk to the voters that you're canvassing? Do you want to sign them up for absentee voting? Do you need to turn them out for absentee voting, through October going into election day? How big of a GOTV effort you need going into election day? All of those things to be mapped out with your grassroots team. Your entire grassroots outreach should be about 30% of your budget, and that includes phones, texts, and doors. So paid phone calls, paid text messages, paid door knocks should be about 30% of your budget. Again, that can be internal or external, but it does need to be a large part of your budget. Grassroots outreach has proven time and again to be one of the few mediums that cuts through all of the noise in today's digital world, and you need to have boots on the ground. You need to understand when you're deploying them, how fast you're getting them up to scale, and what voters you're talking to with them to make sure that you're getting the best return on your investment. You need to be in place, have about 30% of your budget for grassroots outreach. Number 5, you need to have air cover. You can't just knock on doors in a vacuum, or you can, but it's much less effective than having air cover via digital and mail. Voters consume information different ways, and so making sure that they are seeing your ads, your face, your campaign, your messaging across multiple mediums is very important. It will reach voters different ways, and when they're getting it from different mediums, it will sink in more. So if they're getting digital ads thrown at them, they're getting mail in their mailbox, and they're getting knocks on the doors and text messages to their cell phones, all relaying the same messaging, that will sink in a lot better than just a cold knock on the door of someone trying to talk to them about your position. So make sure you assign a digital. That can be 10 to 15% of your total budget. The only caveat with digital is make sure you understand what you're getting. There are a lot of digital firms who are great. There are a lot of digital firms who understand that it's kind of the Wild West right now, and that it's really hard to peg a specific ROI for your digital outreach beyond just this number of impressions you get or number of runs of your 15-second ad. So try to make sure you understand exactly what you're getting, what voters you're hitting with those digital ads, and make sure you're getting a good ROI on that. But you do need to have it, 10 to 15% of your budget. Mail, same thing, 10 to 15% of your budget. A lot of voters nowadays, especially younger voters, don't really go to their mailbox for anything, but there's a large swath of the electorate that does, and that swath of the electorate votes at the highest percentages. So you need to have mail in the mailbox, 10 to 15% of your budget. Again, should be mail. Radio is dependent on you and the location you live in. Sometimes that's worth it, sometimes it's not. And then TV, typically about 15% of your budget if it makes sense. Obviously, if you're in a highly expensive DMA, it might not make sense, but typically, depending on what size race you're running for, you want to have a little bit of money on cable. Broadcast, depending where you are, can or cannot be worth it, but you want to have a little bit of money set aside for TV. If it absolutely doesn't make sense for you to have TV based on where you live or what office you're running for, then distribute that 15% across the rest of your budget. But number 6 would be TV. You do want to plan for that in some capacity, and make sure that you at least have a plan to create some sort of video ads, because you will be producing those for your texting and your digital as well. If you have those 6 things in place, they're realistic, they work backwards from election day, and you've budgeted appropriately for them with realistic budget numbers that you can actually get to with your fundraising efforts, then you have a good plan in place, and as long as you're talking to the right voters and spending those dollars appropriately, you have a very good shot at winning your election.